The twin suns had just dipped below the dunes, leaving the desert glowing like a half-melted ember. Heat shimmered in waves that looked like ghosts reluctant to leave, and somewhere among the adobe huts, a generator coughed itself awake. Kyle adjusted his sleeves and stared at the horizon as if it owed him an apology. "Great," he muttered. "Another beautiful sunset on planet Dustpan." From behind him came the sound of feet crunching sand, light, rhythmic, and just a bit impatient. "Planet Dustpan?" said a voice, soft but laced with that sharp, curious accent that always made him feel like he was being gently insulted. He turned. Lyra stood there, belly round and radiant against the dying light, her silvery hair catching every fleck of sun like she'd stolen the horizon's last breath. Her pointed ears twitched, which she claimed wasn't emotional but physiological. Kale never believed her. "It's called humor," he said. "You know, the thing you aliens think is a weapon. I understand humor," she replied flatly. "I just don't understand bad humor," he smirked. "You're married to one." "Correction," she said, hands sliding to her hips. "Temporarily bonded under Interspecies Research Protocol 7B, pending review." Kale placed a hand over his heart. "Ah, yes, nothing says romance like legal paperwork." That earned him the smallest smile, the kind that started with her eyes and stopped halfway down her face as if her brain vetoed it. She moved closer, and the last orange light drew a halo around her. They stood there, two silhouettes carved out of different galaxies. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Kale broke the silence the way he always did, awkwardly. "So, how's the baby? Still planning world domination?" Lyra looked down at her stomach, then back up at him. "He kicks whenever you speak." "Good taste," Kale said. She tilted her head. "Or irritation," he pointed a finger at her. "That's my boy." "Or girl," she corrected. Kale shrugged. "Either way, it's 50% sarcasm by genetic law." Her laughter came like wind chimes, soft, unexpected, and fleeting. She didn't laugh often, but when she did, Kale felt like the universe gave him a participation trophy for surviving another day. They walked toward the small hut, their feet leaving two uneven trails in the sand. The door creaked like an old throat clearing. Inside, the dim light hummed. Everything smelled faintly of metal, ozone, and whatever passed for alien vitamins these days. Kale pulled up two chairs and handed her a cup of earth tea, his last bag stolen from a supply drop. Lyra sniffed it. "This smells like burnt leaves." "That's the point. Humans are strange." "Thank you." She sipped it and winced. "It tastes like regret." Kyle grinned. "You're getting it." There was a pause. She glanced at him over the rim of her cup. "You've been quieter lately," she said. "That worries me." He leaned back, folding his arms. "You say that like I'm capable of introspection." "I say that because you are not." "Touché." Her voice softened. "Something troubles you." Kale hesitated. He'd been avoiding this topic for days, pretending the sandstorms and the endless maintenance work were reason enough for his late nights. But her eyes, silver, reflective, unblinking, had a way of scraping off all his excuses. "Lyra," he started. "You ever wonder if this was a mistake?" She didn't flinch. "Define mistake," he exhaled. "You know, us, this, whatever it is. You're from a civilization that thinks emotions are a form of bacteria. I'm just a guy who thought intergalactic diplomacy needed a sense of humor." She studied him. "You think our bond was a joke?" He scratched his neck. "No, more like the punchline." Her brows drew together in that uniquely alien way, like a cat deciding whether to attack or nap. "You regret that night." Kyle blinked. "Regret?" "No. That night was, educational." "Educational," she repeated, tone perfectly blank. He backpedaled. "In a cultural exchange kind of way." "You mean in a biological fusion kind of way?" "Wow," he said. "You make romance sound like a tax audit." She looked at him steadily. "You humans attach sentiment to everything you touch, even accidents." Kale's smile faded. "You think this," he gestured vaguely at her stomach, "was an accident?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she placed her hand over her belly. The gesture was almost instinctive, not logical or rehearsed like her usual movements. "I was told my species cannot conceive with yours," she said quietly. "Our scientists calculated the probability at less than zero." Less than zero? It means not even theoretical. Kyle rubbed his temples. "Well, congratulations to us, we've officially broken math." Her lips curved slightly. "It appears so." He stood and paced, frustration flickering between awe and disbelief. "So what does that mean? Your people will dissect us? Write research papers? Name a lab after the baby?" She looked out through the small window at the desert. "They will fear what they cannot explain. And you humans, oh, we'll panic too," Kyle cut in. "We're good at that. We panic, then we build weapons, then we write sad songs." Her eyes met his again. "Then perhaps we should run before either species remembers we exist." Kyle froze mid-step. "You're serious?" "Completely." He laughed, partly because the idea was insane, partly because it made terrifying sense. "You want me to run away with a pregnant alien in the middle of a desert on a planet with 2 suns and 0 air conditioning?" "Yes," he blinked. "You've been hanging around me too long." "Perhaps." The generator outside sputtered again, then died with a dramatic sigh. The room fell into orange twilight. For a moment, the only sound was the soft hum of Lyra's breathing, steady and calm, like she was the only person who didn't notice the world collapsing around them. Kyle finally sat beside her again. "You know," he said, "for someone who claims to have no emotions, you make a pretty convincing mother." Her ears twitched. "Do not use that word." "What, mother?" "It implies attachment," he smirked. "You are attached. I saw you talk to your stomach this morning." "I was issuing commands." "To a fetus?" "It is important he learns discipline early." Kyle laughed, loud and genuine. "You're impossible." She looked faintly offended. "I am statistically improbable." That too. They sat in silence again. But this time it was comfortable, like 2 mismatched puzzle pieces that somehow still fit. Outside, the stars began to blink awake, cold and far away. Lyra followed his gaze. "Do you miss your home?" she asked. "Sometimes," he said. "Mostly the coffee. And sarcasm that doesn't need subtitles. And your people?" He shrugged. "They'll survive without me." "They always do." She nodded slowly. "Your humor is armor." He raised an eyebrow. "Is that a compliment?" "A diagnosis." "Ouch." Her lips twitched again. "You hide your fear behind jokes." "And you hide your feelings behind logic," he countered. They both smiled, softly, reluctantly, knowingly. Outside, the desert wind shifted, bringing with it the faintest trace of rain. On this dry world, that was like hearing laughter in a graveyard. Kale leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Lyra, if what you said is true and your people think this is impossible, what are we supposed to do now?" She looked at him, really looked at him, as if measuring the size of his courage against the size of his stupidity. "We adapt," she said simply. He grinned. "That's the most human thing you've ever said. And the most alien thing you have ever agreed with. Touché again." He reached out, hesitant, clumsy, and placed his hand gently over hers on her belly. For a second, she didn't move. Then, slowly, she let him. Something fluttered beneath his palm, a small, undeniable kick. Kale's eyes widened. "Whoa, did you feel that?" Lyra's expression softened, her usual composure cracking just enough to reveal wonder. "Yes," she whispered. "He is strong." "Yeah," Kyle said, his grin spreading. "Probably gonna be sarcastic, too." She laughed, really laughed this time, and it sounded like light breaking over glass. Then, from outside, came a distant rumble. Both froze. Kale stood, listening. "That's not thunder." Lyra's gaze sharpened. "Engines," he glanced at her. "Yours or mine?" "Neither," she said grimly. Kale grabbed his jacket, heart pounding. "Well, looks like the universe finally RSVP'd to our little secret." Lyra rose, calm as always. "Then we should go. Now." Kyle hesitated at the doorway, looking back one last time at the quiet hut, the place where a human joke and an alien impossibility had turned into something alive. He smirked. Guess one human night really did change everything. Lyra met his gaze, her silver eyes glinting. It always does. And with that, they vanished into the glowing dunes. Two silhouettes against a dying sun, one running from science, the other running toward something terrifyingly human. The desert stretched forever, a rippling orange sea beneath two pale moons. Cale's boots crunched over the sand, each step heavier than the last. Lyra walked beside him, silent, steady, her hand occasionally brushing her belly as if the child inside needed reassurance that the universe hadn't yet lost its mind. Behind them, the lights of the outpost blinked faintly in the distance, tiny fireflies swallowed by the dunes. "Remind me again," Cale panted, "why we didn't steal a vehicle." Lyra didn't even look winded. "Because you said, and I quote, 'They'll expect that,'" he groaned. "Past me was an idiot. Past you is consistent with present you." He shot her a look. "You know, for a woman who claims to have no emotions, you sure mastered sarcasm fast." "Observation is a survival skill," she said. "Especially around you." "Yeah, well, you're welcome for the free education." They walked in silence for a while. The wind had picked up, carrying fine dust that stuck to Kyle's skin. Every breath felt like inhaling powdered glass. Finally, Lyra said, "The child's heartbeat is steady." Kyle blinked. "You can hear that?" "Of course. Through what, magic ears?" She frowned, tapping one elongated ear. "They are engineered for frequency sensitivity, a necessary trait for surviving my planet's storms." "Right, super hearing, great. So you get storm sensors and I get sunburn. Evolution's favorite child." She almost smiled. "You also get jokes. We consider that an evolutionary defect." Cale pointed at her. "See that? That right there? That's progress. You're learning to roast me." "Roast?" she repeated. "You mean insult playfully?" "Exactly. I will remember this custom," she said, expression utterly serious. "For next time," he sighed. "Oh, I've created a monster." They reached a rocky ridge just as the first sandstorm began to rise. The air shimmered with gold and static, and Cale pulled his jacket up over his mouth. Lyra adjusted the filter mask on her face like it was second nature. "Shelter," she said simply, pointing to a cluster of stone ruins ahead. Kyle squinted through the haze. "That looks haunted. Then it is ideal. Humans avoid haunted things." "You're not wrong." They stumbled inside just as the storm hit, sand roaring against stone like a living creature. Kyle coughed and sat against a wall. Lyra stood in the center of the chamber, scanning the shadows. "This place was once inhabited," she said. "Yeah?" Cale brushed dust from his sleeve. "By what exactly?" "By people who are no longer here." "Fantastic. I love that answer." She didn't reply. Instead, she pressed a hand to the wall. The surface shimmered faintly, glowing under her touch. Strange glyphs flickered to life, angular, elegant, pulsing like a heartbeat. Cale watched, half in awe, half in worry. "Please tell me you didn't just turn on the alien version of a house alarm." "It's a beacon," she said softly. "Lyra," he said slowly, "we're hiding." "Yes. Beacons are the opposite of hiding." "This beacon is not for others," she said, her eyes reflecting the soft light. "It is for me," he hesitated. "You're sending a signal?" "No, remembering one." She stepped back, and for a moment the entire chamber came alive. A holographic projection bloomed into existence. A city in the sky, all crystal towers and floating bridges. Voices echoed faintly, laughter in a language Cale didn't know but somehow felt. Lyra stood motionless, eyes wide. "Home," she whispered. Cale swallowed. "That's beautiful." "It was," she said. He watched her face, the way her composure cracked at the edges. "You miss it." Her jaw tightened. "My kind does not dwell on loss." "Yeah," he said gently. "That's why you're crying." Her hand went to her cheek instinctively, surprised to find a tear there. She wiped it away quickly, embarrassed. "This is a malfunction," Kyle smiled faintly. "Sure it is." For a while they stood in the dim glow, the storm howling outside like the universe was angry at them for feeling anything at all. Then Kyle said, "You know, for a scientist, you're terrible at detachment." She shot him a look. "For a human, you're terrible at shutting up. I've been told that's part of my charm." "By who?" He grinned. "Mostly people who stopped talking to me afterward." She gave him a long, slow stare. "That explains much." He laughed softly, then leaned back against the wall. "So, what happens if your people find out about us?" Lyra hesitated. "They will not. But if they do?" She looked away. "They will take the child, study it. Then erase all trace." Kale's jaw tightened. "Yeah, that's what I thought." He rubbed the back of his neck, trying to keep his voice light. "Guess we'll just have to stay ahead of both our species, huh?" She met his eyes. "That is statistically improbable." "Story of my life," he said with a grin. The wind outside began to fade. Lyra moved closer, lowering herself carefully beside him. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then she said, "You are not afraid?" He chuckled. "Of course I'm afraid. I'm just too tired to show it. That is not courage." "Nope," he said. "That's denial. Works just as well." She studied him again, that curious alien way she had, as if she were trying to decode a creature from myth. "You make light of everything. It's a survival mechanism. You joke even when the situation is dire. Especially then," he said quietly. "Because if I stop laughing, I'll start thinking. And if I start thinking, I'll panic." She tilted her head. "You are strange." "Thank you," he said with mock pride. "I work hard at it." Something in her expression softened. "Strange," she said again, "but necessary." He blinked. "Necessary?" "You anchor me," she said simply. Kale wasn't sure what to do with that. His instinct was to make another joke, but for once, he didn't. Instead, he said softly, "You know, you're not half bad yourself." She frowned. "Half bad?" "It means good," he explained. "Humans and your contradictory idioms," she muttered, shaking her head. "You say break a leg to wish luck. You say I'm fine when you are not. You say half bad to mean good. It is confusing," he grinned. "You'll get used to it." "I prefer logic." "Yeah." "Well," he said, leaning his head back against the wall. Logic never kept anyone warm at night. Her cheeks flushed faintly, a rare, delicate shade of silver pink. "Humans are indecent. Only on weekends." That earned him a look halfway between exasperation and amusement. "You never stop." "Not if it gets a smile out of you." She turned her head toward him, lips curving. "You think you are charming. I know I am overconfident, accurate, hopeless, definitely." She exhaled through her nose, a sound that might have been a laugh if she weren't so stubborn. "You are impossible. And you keep saying that like it's a bad thing." The silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable. In fact, it was gentle. The storm outside had died completely, and moonlight poured through the cracks in the stone. The ruins glowed faintly blue, wrapping them in an alien kind of peace. Lyra closed her eyes, resting one hand on her stomach. "He is quiet now," she murmured. Kyle looked at her, and for a moment the sight made his heart ache. "Not in a bad way. In that way, that meant you were suddenly aware of how temporary everything was." "Hey," he said softly, "you ever think maybe this is what it's supposed to be? You and me, stuck in the middle of nowhere, making fun of each other while the universe tries to kill us?" She opened one eye. "That sounds inefficient." "Yeah," he said, "but kind of perfect." She didn't answer, but her hand moved slightly toward his. He hesitated, then let his fingers brush hers. She didn't pull away. Outside, the last winds faded. The stars hung heavy and close, as if eavesdropping. After a while, Kale said, "We should rest. We've got a long day tomorrow." "Yes," she said quietly. He watched her for a moment longer, her eyes half closed, her breathing steady, and smiled. "You know, if anyone had told me a year ago I'd be hiding in a ruin with a pregnant alien who insults me for fun, I'd have said they were crazy." Her lips curved without opening her eyes. "And now? Now I'd say they were psychic." She made a small sound, half laugh, half sigh, and drifted into sleep. Kyle stayed awake a little longer, staring at the alien symbols glowing faintly on the walls. His hand brushed the ground where hers had been a moment ago. He didn't know what the future held, probably chaos, danger, and a lot of running, but for the first time in years, he didn't feel alone. He smiled to himself. "One human night," he whispered, "and here we are." Then he closed his eyes. And the ruins slept with them. Dawn on planet Aster 9 arrived without warning, as if someone had flipped the sky from off to too bright. Cale woke up blinking into a beam of pale gold light. Sand stuck to his hair, his neck stiff from sleeping on stone. Lyra was already awake, of course. She stood by the doorway of the ruin, face tilted toward the horizon, her silhouette caught between the two rising suns. She looked serene, ethereal, and mildly terrifying, like an angel who'd taken a survival course. Cale groaned and sat up. "Morning," he muttered. Lyra didn't turn. "Statistically, mornings are not inherently good." He rubbed his eyes. "You really know how to ruin a greeting, you know that?" She finally looked at him, one eyebrow slightly raised. "Humans greet each other by making unverified claims about the quality of time periods." "I am being accurate," Cale pointed at her. "You're getting dangerously close to sass," she blinked. "Is that a form of contagion?" He grinned. "Yeah, I'm patient zero." He stretched and yawned. "Any sign of trouble?" "2 ships passed overhead at dawn," she said calmly. "Patrol class, not cargo." They were searching. "For us?" "For anomalies," she corrected. "Which is us." Kyle rubbed his face. "Fantastic. We're anomalies now. Always wanted that on my resume." Lyra moved to their meager pack of supplies and handed him a ration bar that looked and tasted like a compressed brick of regret. He chewed grimly. "You know, Lyra, when this is over, remind me to open a restaurant. Human food, real flavor. I'll call it Not This." She gave him a blank look. "Would it be edible?" He swallowed. "Barely." After a moment, her lips twitched. "Then it will remind me of you." Kyle froze mid-bite, staring at her. Did you make a joke?" Her expression stayed perfectly neutral. "Unintentionally." That was intentional sarcasm, admit it. "Coincidental phrasing," she said, turning away. "Lyra, that was an actual joke." "I am assimilating cultural patterns," she said primly. "Do not make it sentimental." "Oh, I'm making it sentimental," he said. "My heart's practically writing poetry right now," she sighed. The long-suffering kind he'd learned meant she was secretly amused. They set out across the dunes again. The sand shimmered beneath the suns, heat radiating upward in visible waves. Lyra walked with quiet grace, her long stride effortless. Cale, on the other hand, trudged like a man waging war with gravity. After about an hour, he spoke up. "You know, I've been thinking." That is rarely encouraging. "Hey!" He shot her a mock glare. "I was thinking maybe we should head toward the old terraforming stations, the ones the colonists abandoned before the war. They've got underground shelters." She considered it. "Possibly. But they may also have automated defenses." "Automated defenses I can disable," he said proudly. "I was an engineer before this whole galactic romance fugitive thing, remember? Your engineering record shows you once caused a reactor to implode." That was a learning experience. Half a colony evacuated. They overreacted. Lyra's ears flicked, which Cale had learned was her version of a sigh. Humans redefine competence daily, and you love us for it. She looked at him sideways. "Love is a biochemical delusion," he grinned. "You say that like it's a bad thing." They walked in silence for a while longer, until the horizon shimmered with the faint outline of structures, jagged towers half swallowed by sand. "There," Kyle said. "Terraforming Station 47 Beta. If we're lucky, the system's still run." "Define lucky," Lyra said. "Not dead." "Then yes," she replied. "That would be lucky." They reached the ruins by midday. The structures were weathered, their metal frames warped by decades of sandstorms. Cale crouched by a control panel half buried in dust, brushing it off with the care of someone greeting an old, cranky friend. "Let's see if we can make this baby sing." He pried open the panel and winced. "Okay, correction. Make this baby wheeze." Lyra stood watch near the entrance. "We have limited time." Power signatures may draw attention. I'll be quick. He fiddled with a few circuits, muttered a few curses, and then the panel sparked to life with a dull hum. Lights flickered on down the corridor. "See?" he said. "Still got it." Lyra peered in. "You risk electrocution and call it skill," he grinned. "You risk falling for me and call it research." She didn't blink. "That statement is inaccurate on every level." "Sure it is." They descended into the station. The air was cooler here, though stale. Faded posters lined the walls, remnants of human settlers who'd once dreamed of turning this wasteland into paradise. Cale brushed one off and read aloud. "Terraform today for a greener tomorrow." He chuckled. "Well, that aged well." Lyra studied the image. "Your species is remarkably optimistic for one that routinely destroys its own environment." "Yeah," he said. "We're consistent that way." They found an old break room with intact furniture. Barely. Cale slumped into a chair that immediately groaned in protest. Lyra sat across from him, folding her hands neatly. "We should remain here until nightfall." "Good plan. You may sleep. You ordering me to nap?" "You looked effective," he smiled. "You know, back on Earth, that'd almost sound caring. I assure you it is not." "Sure it isn't." He leaned back, arms behind his head, and let out a slow breath. The cool, recycled air hummed around them. It felt almost peaceful. After a moment, Lyra spoke again, so quietly he almost missed it. "When I was young, I was told I would never bear life." Cale's eyes opened. "My species," she continued, "engineered ourselves for control. We removed the variables of chance, love, reproduction, emotion. Everything was selection, efficiency, perfection. We could not create life, only design it." Cale sat up slowly. "And now," she looked down at her hands. "Now I am an error in that perfection." He shook his head. "No, Lyra. Your proof perfection isn't the point." She blinked at him, uncomprehending. "Perfection's sterile," he said softly. "Life's messy, unpredictable. That's what makes it beautiful." She studied him for a long time. "You believe chaos is beauty?" "I believe chaos is love's favorite hobby," he said with a grin. Her lips curved faintly. "You have strange philosophies, and you have adorable denial." Her expression turned half amused, half exasperated. "You should rest, only if you admit you like me. Unnecessary condition," he smirked. "I'll take that as a yes." "Then you interpret data poorly." "I'm an optimist." She tilted her head. "That is another word for delusional," he laughed. "Exactly." They both smiled, and for a rare moment no words were needed. Then the base lights flickered. A low rumble echoed through the walls. Kyle froze. "Please tell me that's not what I think it is." Lyra stood instantly, eyes narrowing. "Engines, atmospheric," Kyle groaned. "They found us already?" "Possibly." "Great," he muttered, jumping to his feet. "Because what I really wanted today was cardio." They hurried through the corridors. Cale grabbed a small device from the control room, a portable shield generator that looked like a glorified toaster. "Will that help?" Lyra asked. "If we're lucky." "Define lucky again." "Not vaporized." "Then possibly." They emerged onto the surface just as the sky darkened with approaching craft. 3 black ships glided overhead, silent and sleek. They bore no human insignia. Lyra's face hardened. "Not my people." "Not yours either." Kyle squinted. "Private hunters, great. Interstellar bounty Etsy." The ships began to descend. Sand kicked up around them. Cale activated the generator. A faint blue shimmer surrounded them. Lyra placed a hand protectively over her belly. "They want the child." Cale clenched his jaw. "They'll have to go through me first." Lyra gave him a sideways look. "You are one human," he grinned. "Yeah, and we're stubborn as hell." The first blast hit the shield, sending a shockwave through the sand. Kyle stumbled but stayed upright. Lyra reached out, steadying him with surprising strength. "Hold it together," she said. "Working on it," he shouted. "You want to help?" She lifted her hand, and a burst of energy flared from her palm, pure white light that arced toward the nearest ship. It struck dead center, sending the craft spiraling. Cale's jaw dropped. "You had that this whole time?" It requires extreme focus, she said calmly, and I prefer not to use it unless necessary. Define necessary. He yelled as another blast rocked the dunes. This qualifies. He laughed, half hysteria, half adrenaline. You're insane! I love it. Focus, Kale! He adjusted the generator, rerouting power. Okay, plan, you blast, I fix, we don't die. Acceptable plan. Between her energy bursts and his desperate engineering, they held the line long enough for the remaining ships to retreat, disappearing into the hazy sky. The silence afterward felt enormous. Kale collapsed onto the sand, gasping. Remind me to never doubt you again. Lyra's voice was soft but firm. Doubt is necessary. It keeps you alert. He looked up at her and grinned. You really are learning human nonsense fast. She knelt beside him. And you are learning to survive chaos. Best teacher in the galaxy. Her eyes softened. You risked your life, he shrugged. Habit. For me, she said. He met her gaze. For us. Something shifted in her expression, a tiny crack in the perfect composure. Then quietly, perhaps that is not an error. Kale smiled, heart pounding for reasons that had nothing to do with adrenaline. Told you chaos was beautiful, she exhaled softly. You are infuriating. And you're glowing, he said, pointing. Her bioluminescent markings shimmered faintly along her skin, a phenomenon that only happened when she experienced strong emotion. She quickly looked away, embarrassed. It's a side effect, she muttered. Sure it is. He pushed himself up, grinning. Come on, partner. Let's get out of here before round 2 shows up. Lyra helped him stand. Together they walked into the horizon again, 2 fugitives, 1 miracle, and an entire universe of trouble ahead. As they disappeared over the dunes, Kale muttered, You know, when the kid grows up, we're gonna have the wildest bedtime story. Lyra smiled faintly. If we survive to tell it. We will, he said confidently. You sound certain. I'm human, he said with a wink. We fake certainty better than anyone. She laughed softly, the sound carried away by the wind. And somewhere deep inside the desert, something stirred, watching, waiting. Because fate wasn't done with them yet, not by a long shot. The desert was no longer quiet. The morning wind carried a hum, mechanical, sharp, unnatural. A storm of ships descended over the orange horizon, blotting out the soft rise of dawn. For the first time since landing, the little colony of huts looked small, fragile, like toys in the hands of a restless child. Terran stood outside, his boots buried in the sand, his hand wrapped protectively around Lyra's. Her belly had grown heavier, glowing faintly beneath her loose robe. Every few seconds, a shimmer of alien light pulsed through her skin, a heartbeat that wasn't just human. He smiled despite the chaos above. Well, he said, guess the in-laws finally decided to visit. Lyra squinted up, her golden ears twitching. That's not my family. That's the High Council. They've probably come to erase this whole mess. Mess? Terran teased. You mean our love story? She shot him a look. You mated with the ambassador of the Yishayan people, made her glow like a bioluminescent lantern, and built her a hut in the middle of a sandstorm. The council doesn't call that a love story. They call that an interstellar diplomatic scandal. Terran tilted his head, pretending to think. Scandal's such a harsh word. I prefer galactic bonding experiment. Her laugh was half sigh, half snort, the kind he'd come to live for. Then the first ship landed, a sleek, angular vessel, silver, humming with plasma energy, touched the sand with a soft thump. The ramp extended, and out walked 3 figures in robes of living light. They didn't have faces, just shifting patterns of color that spoke emotion instead of words. But their presence alone was enough to make the air tighten. Lyra straightened, her glow dimming instinctively. Counselors, she said softly, bowing her head. I thought you would never cross the desert. We came because your actions echo across the stars, the central figure said, its voice a symphony of frequencies. A Yishan with child, by a human. Terran stepped forward, crossing his arms. Hello to you too. I'm the human in question. Nice robes, by the way. Very glowy. The council ignored him. Lyra of Yashayan, do you understand what this means? The central one continued. Your kind does not conceive with humans. The genetic divide is absolute. The last time it was attempted, the stars themselves wept. Maybe they'll laugh this time, Taryn muttered. Comedy's all about timing. Lyra squeezed his hand, a silent plea. He shut up mostly, I understand, she said. But this child is real. I've felt its heart. It moves. The impossible often feels real before it destroys, another counselor replied coldly. You will come with us for containment and study. The human will be erased from record. Taryn arched a brow. Erased? You mean like delete me from history? Yes. That'd explain why my exes stopped replying. Even Lyra almost laughed, though her eyes stayed hard. You can't take him, she said. He saved me. He chose me, and this life inside me. It's both of us. The first counselor's lights shifted to deep crimson, the color of anger. You risked our laws. You broke the sacred limit of creation. No hybrid of Yashayan and human can live. Taryn took a step forward. You talk like you're some cosmic doctors who never make mistakes. Newsflash, life doesn't need your permission. One of the counselors turned toward him, glowing brighter. You dare! I dare everything, Taryn said. That's kind of humanity's thing. We make mistakes. We fall in love with people, even if they've got pointy ears and the ability to levitate stuff when they sneeze. Lyra's lips twitched despite the tension. That happened once. Twice, Taryn corrected. The toaster's still floating somewhere over Nevada. The counselors exchanged patterns, a silent alien argument. Lyra watched them, her body trembling as another pulse of light rippled across her belly. Taryn noticed. Hey, you okay? It's starting, she whispered. Starting, oh. His eyes widened. Now? This is, oh great, alien labor during an interplanetary standoff. Classic Tuesday, Lyra doubled over, clutching her stomach. The air shimmered as the energy around her flared. Taryn, don't let them... The ground vibrated. The council stepped back. Containment field? One shouted, but Taryn was already moving. He grabbed Lyra, held her steady, his hands warm on her back. Breathe. Just breathe. I don't breathe the same way you do. Then improvise, he said, grinning nervously. You're good at that. The light from her belly expanded, brighter and brighter until the desert seemed drenched in gold. The ships above paused mid-air. The counselors shielded themselves. And then, with a sound like the universe exhaling, the glow erupted and faded. Silence. Then, a small, echoing cry. Taryn blinked through the haze. In Lyra's arms, wrapped in her trembling hands, was a child. Human eyes, faintly pointed ears, skin that shimmered between two worlds. The impossible lived. Lyra looked at the baby, tears streaming down her cheeks. She's perfect, Taryn chuckled weakly. She's glowing. Literally glowing. We're gonna need bigger sunglasses. The counselor stepped forward again, slowly, reverently now. This cannot be. The genetic lock should have... Yeah, Taryn interrupted. Looks like someone forgot to update their cosmic firmware. One of the counselors studied the infant. This union defies physics, protocol, and sense. Exactly, Taryn said. That's love. They stared at him, the glowing, faceless beings of order and logic, and for the first time, they didn't respond. The silence stretched long enough that Taryn almost felt guilty for enjoying it. Finally, the lead counselor spoke. If this child survives, she will be both bridge and threat. The galaxy will watch. Choose wisely where you raise her. Lyra held the baby tighter. We already chose. The council turned, their light fading as they walked back toward the ship. Then your path is your own. The stars will remember what you did. As the ships rose and vanished into the orange sky, the desert settled again. The wind returned, gentle, familiar. Taryn slumped down beside Lyra, utterly spent. Well, he said, that could have gone worse. Nobody exploded. She leaned into him, laughing softly. You were brave. I was terrified. Still brave. He looked at her, then the baby. You realize she's technically the first of her kind? Half human, half Yeshayan. I mean, if we ever write a parenting book, it's gonna need its own galaxy. Lyra smirked. We'll call it Intergalactic Parenting for Dummies. He laughed, running a hand through his hair. Perfect. First chapter, How to Change a Diaper. When it's glowing, Lyra smiled, her eyes reflecting the twin suns now climbing the horizon. Do you think the galaxy will forgive us? Taryn squeezed her hand. Eventually. We're good at forgiving. Once the memes die down, she leaned closer. You still joke even now? It's either that or panic, he said. And jokes come with better oxygen flow. The baby yawned, tiny fingers glowing faintly. Both parents froze, then burst into laughter, the absurd, helpless kind. Taryn looked down at her and whispered, Welcome to the world, little anomaly. Try not to blow it up. Lyra rested her head on his shoulder. We'll raise her right. With love, with humor, and with whatever this strange thing between us is. Chaos, Taryn said. It's called chaos. The wind swept across the dunes carrying laughter, human and alien intertwined. Somewhere in the distance, the huts shimmered in the heat, as if even the desert itself had decided to smile, and as the sun climbed higher, the universe quietly rewrote its rules. Because somewhere, in a forgotten corner of a nameless world, a human and an alien had proven that love could do what even the stars thought impossible. If you laughed, smiled, or believed, even for a second, that love can outshine the laws of physics, share this story. Let others find a bit of hope, humor, and absurd romance in their galaxies, too.